Welcome to the Silver Creek Insights podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks for having me. My name is Yigit. I was trained as an architect more than 15 years ago now. And after graduation, I kept taking on more and more technology management roles at various levels at different companies for architecture and engineering companies primarily. Currently, I'm the director of technology at INSTUDIO. So I'm overseeing both design technology and information technology here.
And you've worked at the intersection of design and technology for almost over a decade. When did you first realize that you wanted to bridge those two worlds?
It was mostly when I figured out it was an option because these kind of jobs are not really advertised much. So design technology is very closely involved with the design process. So you kind of specialize on the tools and methods that the architects and engineers are using. You kind of develop the specialization on that. And it wasn't perfectly clear to me that, like, yeah, you can actually do this full time and somebody will pay you for it. And when I realized that is an option, I think there are more design technology jobs now than compared to when I started. You
Mhm.
couldn't even really go to school for this, right? There wasn't really certificate or master's programs related to this. They do exist now, but yeah, like realizing that this is an option and I'm interested in it, I'm good at it. So I figured this could be a good career path.
And you mentioned that there are other like design technology roles that now have like classes that people can take and like things to study in school. What are some of those roles? Can you walk us through them?
Uh, I mean, this design technology is a specialization itself, but now you see further specialization. So somebody's title could be a design technology specialist, but it doesn't really at this point tell you what they're exactly doing. So
Yeah.
they could be working architectural projects, but it could also be someone who is actually developing software for architectural applications, maybe using their API. It could be someone that's more focused on data processing, or it could be maybe looking at project data, looking at company-wide data, and there's even people who are implementing tools like Unreal Engine to architectural projects and presentations now. So there's like a wide variety of like new, I think, niche kind of professions almost within the area. Um, and there's definitely more work on this side of things compared to before. And even smaller companies are hiring kind of coordinators and specialists to bolster their kind of technological capabilities.
So, what has been the most surprising challenge for you in aligning tech with creative teams?
The most surprising was how much resistance there is sometimes from the users. You could be objectively proving that you're bringing something new and it's a better way of doing things, maybe it is more efficient, and it just won't matter sometimes. It went as far as people sabotaging work, honestly. Like I've seen that happen. So, which is, I think, like professionally and ethically very wrong, but it does happen. And yeah, like architects and engineers, like people in buildings industry tend to be very conservative. I mean, even maybe 10 years back, I've been hearing stories of people when they're trying to do takeoffs, they're trying to estimate the amount of material that's going to go into something, and they take out prints and take a ruler and then measure it from the paper and then crunch the numbers. And I was just fascinated that like somebody can work this way and they can still run a business and make money. So uh
That's
it's
crazy.
difficult to change habits.
That's crazy. So you mentioned resistance from users, sabotage from your own teammates, and the conservative nature of the industry. Where do you
Not from everyone, all of
Okay,
them. I mean, that was like a rare occasion, I would say. It's
okay.
not that bad in general, but it's happened. But in general, I would say there is a lot of resistance to learning and kind of adopting new technologies. It takes some significant time. Make a new workflow your
Mhm.
kind of standard.
No, it makes sense, and I get why people are resistant to change, but honestly, the only thing that is constant in this world, and especially when it comes to, like, tech, especially with everything that's going on now, is change is the only thing that's constant. What do you think you've done in order to help mitigate, like, that change of workflow or that resistance that comes from either your teammates, users, or the companies that you work for?
Right. I think it all comes down to engaging more with leadership. Leadership
Mhm.
really setting the goals at that level really helps.
Yeah.
I'm in a lucky position now that I have a direct line of communication to the partners here, and it's sometimes a bit easier to. And so I'm an associate here, and associates are the group that typically kind of manages the project. So I'm in very direct contact with them for like day to day projects, and at a broader level where the strategy is going, I'm able to kind of converse with the partners. So that helps a lot. So just getting the leaders aligned with your goals. And I think also understanding business objectives, how business
Mhm.
works. I do find that a lot of maybe people in technology roles and even like architects don't necessarily understand how this business actually works. What we're, I mean, they understand how to design a building, how to work in a project, but ultimately, like how the business makes money and
Mhm.
loses money, right? So understanding those things and aligning technology with those, I think, is a key factor. Being able to speak in dollars and hours, basically, in a consulting business like ours, where it's all like hourly rates and like how much time you spend on a project is going to make or break a project. So those things I think have the most.
So, because you have seen a lot of digital transformations at major firms, besides the ability to read and respond in like dollars and cents and like time, what are some other lessons that you've learned about leading change within established organizations?
I think leadership buy-in is a must.
Yeah.
Uh, it's not always going to be there. And sometimes there might not be a way to win, so to speak. Right. There's no magic that's going to bring leadership on board. And if they're not on board, your goals are just not going to succeed. If and I pointed this out in an interview, actually, in a job interview I joined in the past. Maybe I'm giving too much information here, but I kind of pointed out that like, hey, like you're not happy with the way things are going, but you never really enforce the things you're trying to implement. And you kept uh, kind of promoting and giving raises to people that went against your goals. So like what do you expect me to do, right? I mean, if
Yeah.
you run your business that way, that if you put in the incentives for people to adopt your standards, adopt your technology, then they will be more likely to um, get on board and actually start following those incentives. But if they've done just fine by not caring about this at all, why would they now? Like just
Yeah.
hire some guy to nicely ask them to, can you please, do the things we're supposed to? They have no incentive to really, change.
Yeah. And a lot of companies talk about like digital transformation, but few execute it well. From your experience, what separates success from failure?
I think this kind of ties back to the previous question a bit. So
Mhm.
leadership buy-in, the top goal, I think. I think having a leader that's overseeing technology at a high level and kind of understands at least the input and outputs of that really helps. Because if all your kind of technologist support is like maybe like mid to low level employees, if they don't have enough impact in the company, they don't have the lines of communication to kind of push the targets through. And they need to be able to, you need to have a strategy that aligns with your business goals, right? So you need someone that will be able to build up the strategy and have the team to execute it. So kind of several layers to this, but if any of these are missing, it becomes very, very difficult for like one coordinator to
Mhm.
say, like, reach. like dry change in a 50, 100 people office, it's a bit of a tough task.
No, I agree, and I like that you mentioned so I'm just gonna do a quick recap. So you mentioned leadership buy-in, leaders overseeing tech at a high level, and then business impact. I think it's actually especially important for the second one, having a tech leader at a very high level, because once you have that high level tech leader, whether it's like a VP or director of tech or chief tech officer, you have someone
Mhm.
who understands and can
Yeah.
understand, like, those tech terms and, like, bring it into, like bring in the business impact side of it, and once you then bring the business impact into it, we could then relay that to the leaders who will then potentially buy into it, but unless you have because you can't have, like, a low level, like, junior data engineer telling, the CEO, like, "Hey, we need this." Like, who's gonna listen to that guy?
Yeah, I mean, you need someone who's able to build the budget and justify that budget to the top leadership, saying, "Okay, we're spending all this money, and this is what we're getting in return." It could be getting more competitive, getting work you wouldn't get otherwise, or you wouldn't be able to execute. It could be efficiency, right? So somebody who is driving all that, and I've seen it's not uncommon in like architecture and engineering to have CTO and CIO in like separate roles because the design technology is considered kind of the core technology for architecture companies, and IT is more the kind of infrastructure. I think that's fine too, as long as these two people are talking to each other and supporting
Mhm,
each other's goals. That works out very well. I found that when you have leaders that are good at a political level, which honestly you need at some point, I mean, you do need that to be able to have the tough conversations, to be able to maybe address requirements at different levels. But when they don't have any technical savvy, that doesn't
mhm,
work out very well. So their team usually is not very happy. If you're at a leadership position, I don't think like you need to be the top technical expert on everything.
mhm,
You need to be able to have a meaningful conversation with the people that are reporting to you, I think,
yeah.
regarding like what's going on, what are we doing, what are we spending on, why are we hiring? Like all these need to align.
No, I agree. In an interview that I had with a guy named Isaac Strain, the interview is out right now. We actually had a conversation very similar to this, where he was telling me that as someone in tech, the higher you rise in the corporate ladder,
Mhm.
you should know how to be able you need to be, like, literate when it comes to coding
Yeah.
and whatnot, but you also need to be literate in business, and you actually will be doing less coding as the higher you get, but you still need to be able to converse with those on your team and those business leaders, so it's very aligned and with what you're saying, especially about, like, "Oh, you have to be good at politics." Office politics, they shouldn't exist, but they do, and they could bite you in the butt, or it could also, like, serve you it could serve you well in your career and in your job just with terms of, like, getting things done. What is
Yeah.
something that you do to, like, be good at office politics when it comes to your team? Give me the
Oh,
secrets.
I think I always made an effort to understand what people are trying to do with their work because especially I work with like multidisciplinary companies, like with engineers. In my past positions, especially, I tended to interact with pretty much every level, right? Anyone from like C-suite to basically like junior designer, and they all have different scopes that they're trying to accomplish. Like we're all working towards like one goal maybe, but everybody has different tasks within that. Understanding what they're looking at, because like at the top level, for instance, right, when we're talking budgets, like how many hours we're spending on a project, well, I think time is money in architecture and engineering because we basically estimate how many hours each position is going to spend on a project. We multiply by that by their hourly rates, and that's the price we give for the project, right? That's the like really simple math behind it. Uh, so the more time you spend, the more money you spend. So understanding that, for instance, is going to let you interact better with a project manager because that's what
Mhm.
project managers mostly uh, concerned with. They want to keep the scope under control. They want to keep the spending under control. While a I don't know, junior designer is going to be more concerned with, okay, I need to complete this drawing set by Friday or something like
Yeah.
that. So understanding the goals and the conflicts that sometimes causes, I think, lets you build a good balance.
No, I completely agree, and your work, I think you mentioned that it often involves automating processes and streamlining workflows. How do you balance that efficiency with preserving that human creative side of design?
So for the most part, the creative part doesn't really get automated. I'm focusing on really automating the stuff that doesn't take creativity. Maybe it's mind-numbing work. It's mostly work that nobody wants to do. Right? It's like creative individuals. They want to create great designs. Like they don't want to really spend time exchanging files, right?
Mhm.
If I automate that, they thank me because nobody wants to do that in the first place. Nobody gets into architecture saying like, just send these great files on OneDrive. Like, I'm going to spend 2 hours doing this on Wednesday. What my job is great, right? It doesn't really. They don't. We do still use PDFs a lot, for instance. So we have these very complex kind of building models that gets boiled down to a PDF when we're sending it to a client for most of the time. Thankfully, we're not really doing paper prints anymore. We used to when I first began. Like you would send a physical set to the client. It's
Oh,
just
no.
thankfully that's no longer a thing. I don't see, but if I automate their PDFing process and in larger projects, it can take literally an entire day and render a person's computer unusable. Yeah, that is something that people want to see. And on in means of automating in big codes the design and creativity, there are positions such as like a computational designer, for
Mhm.
instance, but I think the whole automation aspect of it is a little exaggerated because they tend to use either just straight up programming like languages like C sharp or maybe C++ to write something mathematically to convert that into models and designs, or
Mhm.
they sometimes use visual programming software like Dynamo or um, Grasshopper is pretty popular in architecture uh, to again like generate that same thing. So you're kind of connecting these blocks together. It's like the sometimes it's called like spaghetti code or like low code tools basically.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, you are programming. But that doesn't really I would argue it doesn't really automate it. It makes it computational. It lets you go through iterations really fast. But it's not how it's sometimes it's marketed as like, oh, you just click this button and it's just going to generate this whole design for it. It doesn't really work like that. So they still have to go in, put in the work, keep going through iterations of their code. And then they can, after maybe 2 weeks of work, present you, okay, here are the 15 options I can generate quickly. But that quick generation comes after 2 weeks of coding, basically. So
Yeah.
it's not very automated at all.
No, and I kind of agree. I actually think you're using, like, automation tools the way that they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be there to help decrease the time it takes to do, like, manual things. When it
Yeah.
comes to creativity, the creative potential that humans have is unlimited. How can you
Yeah.
put that into how can you automate that? How can you automate, like, what's in your brain, what's that design, that those creative processes? So I think you're doing it actually correctly. I as you were talking, I started thinking about this 3D model generator that I tried using for some designs that I couldn't 3D model myself. They're terrible. They are
I'm not
absolutely
surprised.
awful, and it's just like 3D modeling is so intense when it
Mhm.
comes to connecting all the dots and then, "Oh, I want this to be a more rounded shape." It takes so much time. If someone
Yeah.
could figure out a way to automate that, I would be impressed because right now the tools used for that, bad,
No.
very bad.
And it's, now the modeling itself is complex, and we
Mhm.
have some tools to streamline these. Like the software we use, we don't typically. I mean, they use the kind of basics of 3D modeling, obviously, such as extrusion or kind of doing the sweep, right? They do use those tools, but the tools we use actually have specific tools for building a wall, a window,
Mhm.
or there is a lot of like kind of parametric elements that we have kind of pre-built. Pretty much every company has this, but it actually makes things somewhat more complex because you're actually injecting the metadata as well. So the whole
Mm.
process is called BIM, building information modeling, right? So if I created a wall, it's aware of what type of wall it is, what's the composition, and you put a door on it, it knows the door number, it knows which room the door is actually opening. So when you add all that complexity, automating something or letting a kind of AI tool, like more like a large language model, just handle it and generate something for you is really a difficult task. And the latest iterations in machine learning that we've seen, the tools that came out, are good with text and image.
Mhm.
But an
Mhm.
image doesn't have to be functional, right? An image doesn't have problems when you have beams in the building and the pipes are running through the beams, which is obviously not going to happen. So it needs to be coordinated, right? So it doesn't really have the capability to handle that complexity by any means right now. So there's a lot of buzzwords and
Mhm.
there's a lot of hype around it, but we're very far from something like, okay, here's like, just generate me a building and
Right.
it is even somewhat usable, basically.
When
There can be limited uses, but it's just the overall task is really humongous and very, very complex. So,
so
yeah.
AI is not coming for your job anytime soon.
I don't think so. I mean, I use AI tools or the kind of large language models like fairly often. Don't get me wrong. I have it assist me in writing scripts, sometimes a little tool here and there, maybe writing things, visualizing things, but it's more of an assistance tool and it's not about to take over the process.
So, throughout your career, you worked across architecture, engineering, technology. How has that multidisciplinary approach, that exposure shaped how you approach your problems?
I think it's helped me a lot in resolving conflict in projects because especially between architects and engineers or interior designers and engineers. So architects or interior designers tend to be the prime consultants and they hire the other consultants. There are different models to deliver, but architects and interior designers are usually in a lead position. And I've seen in some cases where if the technology specialists on those sides don't have a good understanding of what engineers are trying to achieve and what are their incentives. And this is coming back to, everybody has different goals. And in this case, they're looking at a completely different aspect of the design, right? So an architect might be more concerned about the aesthetics of how something looks, but a mechanical engineer will be worried about, is this room getting enough airflow to cool it down or heat it up? Right. So understanding those incentives and understanding how they work really helps me, I think, resolve conflict between them. And these days, when I present a kind of technology plan for the project, I get a lot less pushback because I think things are written in a reasonable manner that serves everyone's needs and what everyone's looking.
Yeah,
So
no, you're
yeah, I mean,
you're speaking in their language.
again, it's part of it is not asking for unreasonable or unnecessary things
Mhm.
that I know will not deliver, right, for regular project scope. And part of it is saying like, we're doing this and this is the reason and being able to talk to their sensibilities.
No, that actually that makes a lot of sense, and I like that you mentioned just, like, being reasonable. You talked about being just, like, speaking the same language, and it also sounds as though you built up enough trust with your team.
I would like to think so.
You like to think so?
Yeah. I mean, uh, I'm so a lot of people that are on design technology side of things in Canada, especially, they know each other. It's not a massive amount of people, right? And we do have um, engineering companies here, for instance, that we work with fairly often. There are some companies that I worked at before that I'm now kind of working with as they're kind of our consultant now. I think there's familiarity and there's understanding that, okay, if you're doing a project with this company, this is more or less what they're going to ask for. I know like different companies like capabilities, so I can
Mhm.
actually assess. Okay, if we need a really kind of advanced project, like we need to produce some intricate models, are they going to be able to deliver? I can actually advise the rest of the leadership about that. Um, so yeah, like having those connections and building the relationships also definitely helps on the long term.
And what is one career decision or opportunity that you took that felt risky but ultimately paid off?
Taking this job,
Yeah.
my job. The reasoning behind is this is a 35 people studio. We do very so INSTUDIO does uh, very custom specialized work. Uh, our client base is actually like we're competing for the same projects as our several hundred people or like
Wow.
thousand people companies are competing for, right? So the client base is kind of the same. But this was a move for me where I was signing up for a much smaller company than I worked for before. Like every company I worked for before had at least several hundred people.
Wow.
So you have a lot more support infrastructure. You have maybe a larger IT team. You have a bigger design technology team, maybe there's more resources, but there's also more bureaucracy. I have an entire presentation about this, by the way, like how like big versus small, like how do you compete with them? Like what are the pros and cons? Like not everything is like much better and not everything is worse, right? But it was certainly a bit of a risk for me coming to a smaller company and I was taking on more responsibility for sure
Yeah.
because I came in and I was the go-to person basically regarding any issues on my field. Like I didn't have an escalation basically, and I didn't have a team of like 10 people I can rely on, right? So that felt a bit risky at the time, but yeah, I think I'm pretty happy now with how this turned out. So I ended up taking over IT side of things as well, which was a kind of interesting aspect of
Yeah.
it. But having that control on both sides, and I think I have a decent understanding on both sides as well, that I can kind of determine the direction and a bit less bureaucracy, basically, compared to a larger company, which is kind of the nature of things. Uh, so I'm enjoying that quite a bit now.
And it sounds like, what's funny is, so you said that if you had to raise an issue, you had to raise it to yourself, basically. Yeah. Well, what's nice is you have hands-on experience now in both types of companies, so now you know. And this is something where it's like, unless you're actually there working, sure, you could have advice from other people, but now you know from your first experience that here are the pros, here are the cons. And I'm actually gonna come back to it in the rapid fire question portion so I could learn more about that. But if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice at the start of your career, what would it be?
Uh, I think it would be a bit more patient, maybe.
In
But
what
I think
regards?
that would be very useful because maybe it comes with age to some extent. I think I would just, it's coming from, I think I would get frustrated a bit too easily with people kind of resisting to change. There's definitely situations I look back and I'm thinking like I could have handled them better. It's not like, I don't know, I had shouting matches in the middle of the office, no, nothing like that. There's certainly things where I could maybe talk to leadership a bit more, right? That's, I guess we keep coming back to that, but that's just how I see it. And like just be patient with people, and there's no need to really stress out too much if something's not working out. So maybe think about why it's not working out. What can you who you can talk to and what can you put in place to kind of push things through. I was just very eager, and I was the kind of person that goes on, does tutorials, learns something new every few months. I
Yeah.
still am to some extent. I learned a lot about data processing. I learned programming at a basic level, scripting. I don't think it's realistic to expect other people to be focused on those as much as I was, because part of it was my job to maybe go
Mhm.
learn those things, and part of it is I like learning, and I had an interest in those. So yeah, maybe keeping that in mind would have helped me a bit.
No, those are all great piece of advice, and I actually wanna expand on one. You said, talk to leadership more, right? How about talk to leadership more and also, like, recognize that they're people too?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think yeah.
being in the position I am now, I'm definitely reminded that there is again different incentives and different pressures on.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, sometimes leadership could be on your side in their mind, but they're not in a position to say yes to everything you're asking for.
Oh, for sure.
So, like, and even if you're I don't know, like CEO of a company, right? You still have clients to worry about. You have someone you're reporting. You're reporting to the board. You're reporting
Mhm.
to clients. I mean, you're not literally reporting to the clients, maybe, but at the end of the day, if you lose your clients, well, you'll lose your job or the company.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's still a job too. But I said that to say, I remember when I was younger and getting started, I was so, like, nervous to talk to, like, my manager about issues or anyone higher up. So I was like, "Oh my goodness, like, I don't wanna, like, complain or say" I didn't know how to stand up for myself. So I say, like, realize that they're people and more so in terms of, like, they're a human too. Like, if there's anything that's bothering you and you think that you need to, like, fight for your worth, like, oh, absolutely do it.
I think a better way to put this is
Yeah.
maybe like work on your soft skills, right?
Ooh, work on soft skills,
I
yes.
think I was I just actually talked about like how I was learning technical things and whatnot, but
Mhm,
at the end of the day, you're bringing in this technical expertise for the people. If you don't have the soft skills to express yourself well, tell your story,
mhm.
to convince people, bring them on board, whether this is a designer or architect or someone from leadership, I think there isn't a case where soft skills are not useful, basically.
Yeah, it's true. Just knowing how to talk to someone, express yourself, and also I will say for it I think it's kinda different for us. I feel like we're both fairly, I feel like we're outgoing. We know how to talk to people. There's some people that need a little bit of assistance in the tech industry when it comes to knowing how to just, like, speak normally and
Yeah,
others, but
definitely.
the soft skills, but also the confidence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
those are important.
it's interesting. Like you called me more outgoing because I would definitely be qualified as an introvert.
Yeah.
When I think maybe like back when I started or when I was in school,
Mhm.
it's just I don't think I quite had the confidence, and I honestly didn't even think of when I was starting this. My goal wasn't like I'm gonna get a leadership role. I'm gonna be managing entire technology for a company or anything like that. It just came more in like I kept seeing things fail, and I, uh, I mean, when I say I kept seeing things fail, like it's just from my perspective, right? It wasn't going the way I want. So I figured if I keep rising through the ranks and I have a bit more authority, that's a tool for me to really kind of build up my vision and just kind of implement that, right?
Yeah.
It's not for the sake of like I don't know, having the position, the power or whatever. It's more I wanted to do things and I couldn't do them because, maybe I was a specialist and I didn't really have much say on what direction the company is going or the strategy was going the complete opposite way of what I thought was should have happened. And I didn't really have a say in it. So I wanted to have a say and that's
Yeah.
so here I am now, careful what you wish for.
No, I think that's a great wish to have, but I think what's awesome in your case is that it may have manifested in a way that you didn't think it would, but you got what you wished for at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy where I am. Just and I'm in a rare position where again, like I'm kind of looking at both sides of the aisles, and I've been
Mhm.
making improvements to kind of both sides, and I can keep them aligned because I don't really have to, even converse with a second person to just kind of get the two fields on board. I mean, there's a lot of stress, obviously, right? And there is, especially looking at infrastructure, like infrastructure goes down, like everything goes down, like your work stops, right?
Yeah,
So there's the added stress, but it is rewarding.
I like that. No, I'm happy that you get to experience something rewarding. I feel like if you're in a career where you don't feel like it's rewarding, I think you might be in the wrong spot. So hearing that is like, okay, this is good. So for those hoping to enter the design technology space, what skills or mindset should they prioritize now?
I think the most important skill is learning
Mhm.
and being able to align that learning with the like company's goals. I mean, there are maybe more specific things such as maybe learn programming at a very basic level, like
Yeah.
understand what a list is, what an integer is, and whatnot, right? So these like programming terms, like even low code tools can do so much these days. Like we get a lot of work done with those, right? We have custom automations that take care of these. So once you have the basics, it's going to be very easy to get into those low code tools. And there are even some open source ones you can use right now, but that can no cost. That's a great one to learn. I think what's important is to accept that what you learn today might not be super relevant 3 years from now, 3 or 5 years, right? And there are certainly things that maybe I spent the time learning, but they became obsolete.
Mhm.
And honestly, I'm fine with that because it's a maybe much more streamlined process now. There are new tools that take care of those things that I was looking at. Beyond that, I think just knowing the fundamental tools that you're using. So in design technology, that would be things like maybe Revit for designing or Solibri for coordination, things like Revisto and whatnot. So those are a bit more like on the job learning. I think like it's not very accessible before you get into the industry usually, because if you're looking at some like model coordination, okay, what model am I coordinating, right? Where am
Yeah.
I going to like, where am I going to find an airport model to coordinate? Like, it's just no one's going to hand that to you. So it's a bit of a difficult task, but I think like trying to learn the tools that designers are using at a fundamental level. Plus, I think programming and data analysis are very, very useful.
Mhm.
I have no intentions of becoming a data scientist full time or anything like that, but I'm able to pull fairly complex charts together in something like Power BI, for instance. And that's helped me a lot actually in building business cases, right? Because I can
Yeah.
show the data to tell, okay, we're for something like, okay, we need to buy licenses because we're maxing out this license pool 8 times a week, right? So just being able to show that, then that there's no counter argument, basically. It's like we're getting out of licenses 8 times a week. We need to buy licenses, right? Like what else can I say? So it's helped a lot with business case situations like that. So it just
You're good. You're
yeah.
No,
Um,
those are all really great, and I especially like that you threw in the use the data that's available to help tell a story for business use case, because that is so useful, and if you're sitting on the data and you're able to pull it, pull it. Like, anything that could help, like, back your case, like, why not use it?
yeah. One example is I actually pulled benchmarking metrics from different devices to show the time loss that's caused by outdated equipment, right? So, like if we were looking for a reason to just kind of refresh our devices, maybe move more people to laptops and such, then being able to objectively convey that
Mhm.
rather than saying these devices are slow, show me how they're slow. Like I
Yeah.
mean, I can tell you exactly how slow they are. Basically, they're like they're giving half the performance of the newer ones.
Yeah, no, just having that visual, that's definitely helpful, and so we're coming up on time, but do you have some extra minutes for some rapid fire questions?
Sure, I have some time.
Alright. What is the first design tool you ever fell in love with?
Design tool. It was ArchiCAD. I
Yeah.
do not use it anymore because most of the industry doesn't here in North America, especially. But it was kind of my first introduction way back in like second year of school, actually. And I immediately thought this is a much better way of designing things compared to like just drawing lines and having them represent something,
Oh
right?
my goodness. No,
Which is more or less what AutoCAD is, right? There's not much intelligence behind it. You can bake in some, but at the end of the day, you're drawing lines and lines represent something, and then
mhm.
somebody on site tries to build it off from that. And that is pretty much how hand drawing works too. So you're imitating hand drawing. It's a bit better. It's a bit easier to revise and whatnot, but the logic is the same. But with ArchiCAD, I figured, well, you can actually build walls, you can build roofs, you can have your 3D visualization pretty much on the go. So yeah,
That's pretty cool. I had to check it out now. I don't do architecture, but I'm curious now.
yeah,
What
we're
is
most Revit these days, but
Yeah.
again, like that was my first introduction. So sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. What is the most overrated buzzword in your industry?
AI.
What is one pro of working at a large company?
Amount of resources, right?
Yeah.
It's and resources in means of um, both the people and the software you can have access to. Like just buying things is a bit easier, maybe. They have the they can actually get better deals because they're buying 10,000 of something.
Mm.
I'm exaggerating, maybe like very few companies do that. Imagine like who's going to have better bargaining power, like a company that's buying 10,000 licenses or 10 licenses, right? I mean,
There.
that's definitely going to be the case.
What is one pro of a working for a small company?
I would say the agility,
Ooh.
how quickly you can implement things and how quickly you can pivot.
Ooh.
Software that you had a good bargain on because you had 10,000 licenses. Well, now you need to deploy that software to 10,000 people and you need to teach people and implement it and have all those people follow a similar process, and maybe they're spread across different regions, that they have different regulations to look for. So it's a humongous task basically now to roll that out and actually get it in use. But if you have 10 people that you need to roll this out to, you can maybe do it in a few weeks.
That's so interesting that you say that because it's true. It's the less people you have, the more bureaucracy you have to go up against, and the faster you could just turn around. Half of the issues that come from, like on my end with work, is like that bureaucracy. It can very easily get done, but going through those hoops makes it take at least 3 times as long as it needs to. And last question: what is one creative app or tool that you cannot live without?
Oh, creative app or tool. I don't do a lot of creative stuff, honestly. I do design mostly workflows and like implementation, but just thinking like what am I creative with? Like could be I'm going to say Power BI.
Ooh, okay, interesting and why?
It might not be considered creative, but I think there is capability to use it creatively. It means of what you're looking at, how you're looking at it. And an example of this is I used it once to figure out what to archive, right? I was
Mm.
looking at lost access dates for files and figured, okay, all of these projects did not get touched for like 6 months. I'm going to email their project managers and tell them I'm archiving these.
No, it makes sense. Hey,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Like, this was a great conversation, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me.